I didn't really sit through that many bad movies in theaters this year. Out of all the ones that I saw, I probably would say two or three of them weren't very good, but I didn't sit there and go, oh man, fuck these movies, like some of the movies that I do videos for. No, like, a lot of the movies I saw I thought were either okay or actually really good. Um, I didn't willingly sit through a lot of the ones that people said sucked. I didn't sit through, taking the streaming movies out of the equations. Like, I didn't willingly sit through War of the Worlds on Amazon or Electric State on Netflix. But even like the big, most hated movies of the year, I didn't willingly sit through. I didn't sit through Snow White, Hurry Up Tomorrow, The Woman in the Yard, Megan 2.0, Until Dawn, shit like that. I didn't sit through all the like most hated movies of the year, except for maybe one and two other ones that people would say weren't very good. But I figured I would talk about them for this video because I sat through a decent number of different movies that were different enough from one another, but still had a lot of similarities to each other. And, well, I also want to talk a little bit about the current state of cinema as of 2025 going into 2026. And it seems that we're going through several different paradigm shifts. Alright, so the first movie I saw was in February of last year, and it was Love Hurts. That's right, the movie directed and starring Short Round from Temple of Doom. And I gotta say, I felt kind of bad because I didn't hate this movie like other critics did. Like, I saw a lot of critics that just laid into this fucking movie and said it was like one of the biggest pieces of shit they saw. Little did they know a bunch of the other bullshit that was on the horizon for 2025. But I mean, even when it came out, I just sat there going like, I don't think it's very good, but I don't really get the vitriol for it like some other people do. The basic premise is a play on the old saying, never trust the nice ones, because Short Round in the movie, he plays this realtor guy, most friendliest, just nicest guy in the world. But as it turns out, he has a connection to crime because him and his brother used to be these big crime lords. He had a falling out with this girl he really liked. Now she's coming back because not only does she kind of want to rekindle the relationship, but more importantly, she has his brother chasing after her. And along the way, we have a couple of other assassins that are coming after him, and he has to, you know, do what he did in a lot of other movies and just go full fucking Jackie Chan mode. And it basically becomes one of those like rom-com action movies, no dissimilar to the ones from the 2010s, like Killers or The Bounty Hunter and movies like that. And while I didn't think it was as bad as movies like that, it definitely falls into that category. The action scenes are sometimes filmed pretty good, and you do get some John Wick style action scenes throughout this thing, but other times it feels like it relies too much on that shaky cam shit because it was like, oh fuck, we want the audience to not be able to tell what's going on because we want to cover up some sloppy choices. It's not super prevalent throughout the movie, but it's enough to where I was noticing it halfway through. And my biggest issue with it is, you know, for a action rom-com, the two leads really didn't have that good a chemistry. I mean, like, they're not bad actors, but it's like, they introduced that whole romance and they're falling out through flashbacks halfway through the movie, and the entire time I was just like, I don't really care, honestly. Like, I knew they were going to get back together in the end, so not a lot of it felt really deserved or earned. There are other characters in the movie who have better chemistry and interactions with each other than they do. I mean, there's this woman that works with the main guy in his office, and when they introduce her, she talks about how she can't find the right guy. But then there's this guy who shows up. He's like another assassin. He's like a very kind of dark, poetic individual, and they end up getting together. It's like the least likeliest romance you'd ever expect. And honestly, they had better chemistry, and I wish the movie was about them. And even these two bad guys who are chasing after the main guy, I thought they were funnier. They had better interactions and better timing. Like, they were obviously the bumbling henchmen that were going after him. But but even they had better chemistry. The best part of this movie is you have a guy who's apparently an HGTV host who's kind of a rival to the main guy. I mean, they set that up at the very beginning, and then they just kind of sit on it for a while. But then when it gets to the big third act, you know, guns a-blazing fight scene, he shows up, actually starts kicking ass, and he says, "I know karate, motherfucker," and then immediately gets shot. I don't know what it is, but that scene always makes me laugh. That was like the hardest laugh I got in the whole movie. Rewatching it for the sake of this video, I didn't really have a whole lot to say. I mean, I didn't think it was that awful, especially considering other shitty movies that came out in 2025, but I don't know. It's definitely a movie riddled with flaws. I think at most I'd give it, I don't know, a C grade. It's like I wasn't angry watching it, but there are a bunch of flaws in it to where it kind of kept me from enjoying it. So that's where I would put it. It's a C movie. It's like maybe if, you know, you're looking for a dumb action rom-com, maybe you'd like it, but I mean, it's kind of hard to beat Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I think that was like the gold standard that all of these movies that came afterwards were trying to copy, and that's just kind of where the movie lies. Next up is a movie I actually didn't know was going to be in theaters, and I'm actually kind of glad it was. That being The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. This was apparently a movie a lot of people really wanted to happen because Warner Brothers for years have been saying, oh, nobody wants to see a Looney Tunes movie unless they have big name celebrities in them, like Michael Jordan or LeBron James or Brendan Fraser and that chick from Dharma and Greg. You know, it's one of those. And I mean, even after that, they were talking about doing other ones. It's like, oh, we're going to do a wrestling movie with Dwayne Johnson and Looney Tunes skater movie with Tony Hawk and one set in NASCAR with Dale Earnhardt and stuff like that. So yeah, Warner Brothers seemed to have such little interest in Looney Tunes as a franchise. And granted, Looney Tunes is a franchise I haven't really thought about in a very long time. I haven't been paying attention to it at all. That's more MediaWiz's thing. But there was just so much push for this movie to go to theaters, and Warner Brothers were just so unconfident in it, to the point where they eventually sold it to some company called KPop Entertainment, which was one of the most jarring parts of the movie. I mean, the beginning of it, you see KPop Entertainment, then the Warner Brothers logo, and then KPop Entertainment again. So, yeah. But going into this movie, I was like, okay, I mean, if it's playing, I'd be curious to see it. I don't really know if I'm going to love it or whatever. But actually watching the movie, I gotta say, this is probably one of the best animated movies I saw all year. Is it a great movie? That's debatable. But as a Looney Tunes movie, it felt a lot more like one of the classic Looney Tunes than stuff like Space Jam or Looney Tunes Back in Action, which just felt like products. You know, it was filled to the brim with celebrity cameos and pop culture references and giant tie-in soundtracks. And this is coming from someone that actually doesn't hate Looney Tunes Back in Action or Space Jam. I mean, Space Jam's definitely a guilty pleasure, but, you know, those movies, I guess one of the biggest criticisms from people who are huge animation people, they would say that they weren't really authentic Looney Tunes movies. This one, on the other hand, this actually did feel like one of those old Looney Tunes shorts stretched to an hour and a half, and they actually made a pretty compelling movie out of it. It follows a basic Looney Tunes premise of Daffy Duck and Porky Pig trying to keep the home that they live in, which was given to them by their surrogate father figure, Farmer Jeb. So to keep the house, they get a bunch of odd jobs, and they end up getting a job at this bubblegum factory. And at the bubblegum factory, there's some sabotage going on because there's this alien that's putting stuff into the gum, and the gum eventually takes over people's minds and turns them into, you know, pod people style mind-controlled aliens taking over their bodies. And then ultimately it ends up turning out that the alien actually wasn't a bad guy, which was a twist I legitimately didn't see coming. And the alien was actually trying to protect the planet Earth from being hit by a giant asteroid. And in the last act, it pretty much becomes Armageddon. There were so many things I liked about this movie. I liked the characterization of the characters. I mean, it was a little bit jarring to see Daffy Duck as the wacky one, because I guess that's how they used to be in the cartoons. But, you know, Porky is sort of the straight man who has to clean up after Daffy's messes. And on top of that, there's a love interest for Porky who, again, I guess this character was in the original cartoons, Petunia Pig. And so it's basically the three of them, and then the other characters you have in there are this scientist guy who spends most of the movie under alien control, and this alien guy, surprisingly played by Peter MacNicol, who's like one of the two people I recognized in the cast, who aren't like major celebrities, but the other one was Newman from Seinfeld, Wayne Knight, who's in another movie we're going to get to in a bit, but he did a really good job in this movie as a voice actor because I legitimately didn't recognize him. He's like the mayor in a couple of scenes, and he doesn't just sound like Wayne Knight doing, his normal everyday voice. The other thing I liked was the shake-up of different animation styles. This definitely felt like it was made for people who are into animation because there are so many different animation styles. There's the main animation style throughout the movie that looks like one of those old Bob Clampett era cartoons. But then there's other animation styles along the way, like Farmer Jeb is a character who's animated like he's animated like a South Park character or something out of Terry Gilliam Monty Python sketches, where it's like there's a scene of him walking away and it's supposed to be really like sad and dramatic, and he just kind of like boop, 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 up and down. And then there's a scene near the end where there's a news broadcast and the newscaster is saying something like, oh, and the only ones who are going to be able to save the day are 2 pigs, a duck, a scientist, and an alien. And they just show stock PNGs of those things instead of like actually like showing what the characters look like. I thought that was kind of funny. It looked like one of those things you see in like, I don't know, like those like news comedy shows where they just use like stock PNGs or stock images. I guess there was enough push for Ketchup Entertainment to get another Warner Brothers movie that they were going to get rid of, which was that Acme versus Coyote movie. That one, I don't know if I'm as confident in, because I mean, that one seems a little bit more like, oh, we're getting celebrities. Look, we got Will Forte, we got John Cena. So I'm a little bit weary of that one, but this one I definitely really liked. I enjoyed it a lot. I liked it so much I went out and actually got it on DVD. So yeah, Day the Earth Blew Up. If you like Looney Tunes and you like animation and you want to see a full-length Looney Tune movie that actually feels like Looney Tunes, by all means, check this one out if you haven't already. Next up is one of the other million action comedies that I sat through, Novocaine. I really liked Novocaine. I think that this movie was a very good vehicle for Jack Quaid, who I was already liking from some of the other performances he's been in, and he was also one of the celebrities that showed up on Red Letter Media. He seems like a very down-to-earth kind of guy. I really like Jack Quaid a lot as an actor. So seeing him helm this kind of comedy movie, I was very interested in seeing. And I really liked the premise going off of the trailer. And overall, I thought the movie was actually pretty good. It wasn't anything great, but I thought it was a very entertaining movie. Novocaine is about this guy, played by Jack Quaid, who works at a bank, and he's very shy and very awkward. And he eventually reveals to this girl he has a crush on, who also started working at the bank, that he cannot feel pain. Well, he can't really feel anything, but he can't feel pain, which is why he got the nickname Novocaine. But him and this girl, they hit it off. They have a very successful first date together. It seems like they really like each other. And then the next day, there's a bank robbery. And they end up taking the girl as leverage. And then halfway through the movie, it's revealed that she's actually working with them. So she was probably just using him to get crucial information about the bank and the safe and stuff like that. But he decides to go action hero mode, and in his own dorky kind of way, he goes chasing after her, and he gets confronted several times by these goons, but because he can't feel pain, he gets punched, stabbed, shot, and whatever else, and he can't feel a thing. And he ends up accidentally taking these guys out most of the time. And honestly, I thought that was a really good premise. It was something very unique, something very different, sort of a good take on the whole bumbling action hero genre. It reminded me of a lot of other movies of this type. Like, it reminded me of other movies I really liked, stuff like Keanu. Jack Quaid, I think, plays the character really well. And a lot of the other characters in the movie are played really well. The lead girl in it, I thought, was really good. I thought her and Jack Quaid had great chemistry. The bad guy who is fucking chewing scenery like dinner, I mean, he just, like, leans into the whole, like, just bad guy psychopath, like, oh, yeah, you love him now, don't you? That guy... I'm blanking on the actor's name at the moment, but that dude was just having fun with his role. Some cop characters who have some pretty funny banter all throughout. You have this one dude who is played by this, I forget the guy's name, but he's this reoccurring character actor. He's been in a couple of things. Like he was the doctor in Hangover, and he just pops up periodically in a bunch of stuff. But the cops have some pretty good banter back and forth, and there's even a best friend character for Jack Quaid, and he's played by Ned from the recent Spider-Man movies, who's basically playing the exact same character. He's the nerdy best friend who's good with computer stuff, and he's just as funny here as he is in those movies. I really liked his character in this. Like, when he says, like, oh yeah, I got a motorcycle, and then later it turns out it's a moped, and then they have to do a chase scene on his moped. And then there's parts where he's like trying to like barter of getting out of being arrested because he's technically an accomplice to all this. There's lots of really fun stuff in this movie. I really liked it. I'm not going to act like every joke landed, because there are one or two jokes where I was just kind of like, okay, that was telegraphed. But I really liked this one. I could find myself going back to this one every once in a while. I thought this was a very fun movie. Next is one that I already did a video on, which there's two, I guess technically three of those in here, but I will talk just very briefly about it. Colorful Stage, the movie, a Miku Who Can't Sing. I mostly just wanted to bring it up because I already did a video for it, so if you want to see a more in-depth review of that and me talking about the theater experience, you can check out that video. Simply put, it's fine. I mean, if you want a movie about Hatsune Miku, and especially if you want a Colorful Stage movie, pretty good for what it is. I wouldn't say it was anything groundbreaking, but yeah, it was good for what it was. I had a decent theater experience. I mean, it was one of the smaller rooms in that theater that I went to, and yet, despite being packed in like sardines, everybody was pretty respectful, nobody was annoying, everybody was having a good time with it. And I think I mostly just wanted to bring this movie up because as of the beginning of 2026, they actually announced that it's going to be coming to Blu-ray, which I'm just happy to hear about, because for the longest time I was wondering, when the fuck is this going to get a physical release, or when is it coming to streaming? So yeah, I'm happy to hear that around April, I think, is when they're going to be shipping out the Blu-rays. I'm just so glad to see that it is finally getting a proper release, because it's been so long since it's been out. So you think that, I mean, even if it just went to Crunchyroll, it'd be like, okay, it's on streaming, now people have easier access to it. For the longest time, the only other way I could watch it was through a cam rip. But anyway, moving on to a movie I haven't talked about yet, that being 28 Years Later.
6, 11, 5, 4, 17, 32, the day before.
I did not know how to feel about this going in, because on the surface I thought it's just going to be another Legacy sequel. But, to my surprise, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it in the same way that I enjoyed A Quiet Place Day One, which was that prequel movie to the Quiet Place movies. I enjoyed that as just a nice, kind of quiet, kind of horror story that has horror elements, but it's more of a character study. I like this movie in the same way that I like that, because it takes place near the beginning of this zombie outbreak that goes on in Europe, and we can only assume the rest of the world, but we're mostly focusing on this little area over in Scotland. And we focus on this little boy who has a mom who has some kind of cancer, and his dad is like the leader of this revolution group of humans that are trying to stay alive. They have a giant wall to keep zombies boarded out, and every once in a while they have to go across the aisles so that they can get supplies, and of course, they have to survive zombie attacks. But eventually, the boy starts to grow resentful of his dad, because the dad, behind his wife's back, is like hooking up with other girls. So eventually, the boy decides to just run away, and this is his becoming a man moment where he finally stands up. He takes the mom with him, and they go across to the aisles to try and find this alleged medicine man that's apparently some kind of crazy guy who knows a thing or two about medical stuff, and hopefully he can help cure the mom. Even though everyone is telling him, no, this man can't be trusted, he's an ally of the zombies, he's a bad guy. But throughout the movie, it's basically just this boy and his mom trying to trek across these landscapes while trying to also survive zombies. And they end up coming across the guy near the end of the movie, and he seems nice, but he's obviously very eccentric. And he does ultimately come to the conclusion that there's no way they can actually cure the mom, and the mom is going to die soon. It is very emotional when the mom inevitably dies and the kid has to say goodbye. It's very sad, and it did tug at my heartstrings, and I thought the movie did a very good, very tasteful, respectful job. In this day and age, it seems like we're getting a lot more of these kind of horror movies where, even though they are set in horror settings, and there are horror elements to it, there's a lot more deep stuff going on in here. This probably isn't even the best example of that, and yet I still really liked how the movie handled itself. I thought they did a good job with this. It wasn't just the same, oh, it's a 28 insert whatever later movie. Oh, it's just going to be a bunch of slashing and gashing and cliche zombie shit. I mean, yeah, it's a zombie movie, but there's more to it. It's more of a character study of this boy and his relationship with his mother who's dying. And I thought they did a very good job. And yes, they did leave it open-ended. There is going to be a sequel sometime in January, which again, I am really worried about because it's January where a lot of the shittiest movies come out. So a little bit worried about that. But as for this one, the first 28 years later, I really like this one a lot. Next up, we got The Naked Gun, starring Liam Neeson and Pamela Anderson. Now, when I first heard of this movie, it was because I saw the poster on Facebook and I thought it was one of those fake clickbait AI posters where it's like, oh yeah, it's a popular IP starring current actor. Oh yeah, Liam Neeson in a Naked Gun movie. Yeah, right. It was the same way I felt when I saw the first poster for War of the Worlds with Ice Cubes. I'm like, oh yeah, that's real. Yeah, that's up there with fucking Titanic 2 and live action Simpsons with Adam Sandler. Yeah, that's totally real. To my surprise, it actually was real. And then I saw that there was a teaser trailer for it. I watched it. I thought it was mildly amusing, but I was worried that it was just going to be really stupid and really forced, like a lot of other reboots or legacy sequels that we've gotten as of late. But to my surprise, it was actually really funny. It was genuinely entertaining, and I would say it was pretty much on par with a lot of the other Naked Gun movies. It was consistently entertaining all the way through, and it has a bunch of different type of humor all throughout. You got wordplay, you got double entendres, you got visual gags, you got fourth wall gags. Like at the end, you have Pamela Anderson and Liam Neeson interacting with the rest of the scene around them, all going into a freeze frame while they're still moving, and they're interacting with like the credits, and they point out that there's music up playing somewhere. They finally realize they're in a movie, which apparently that was a callback to, I think, the original Police Squad show. So the fact that they were able to bring that back, that was pretty good. It wasn't like a typical comedy reboot where they try to lean into a lot of the kind of modern comedy stylings. This felt like an honest-to-God tribute to one of those old Zucker Brothers type comedies, and it didn't feel out of place. It felt like it could have easily taken place in the world of those Naked Gun movies, because everyone is treating all this goofy shit around them so seriously. And I think one of the reasons I was a little bit curious, if not suspicious, was because it said from producer Seth MacFarlane, who he's made it no secret that he's a big fan of these old spoof movies. He's a big fan of the 80s in general. Yeah, Seth MacFarlane has a very rocky track record. And it was directed by one of the guys from The Lonely Island, who I guess is just a director now. Like, he directed that Pop Star movie with The Lonely Island and that Chippendale live-action movie and just other stuff where I was like, either like, it was okay, or, oh, that wasn't that good. But this one, probably his best movie. I really enjoyed it a lot. And I think the one scene that I thought was not going to be funny, but actually proved to be one of the best parts of the movie, is there's a 5-minute interlude in the middle of the movie where they have this like romantic montage, and they show Pamela Anderson and Liam Neeson in the cabin in like a snowy mountainside somewhere, and a snowman ends up coming to life and then tries to have like a three-way with them, and then ends up trying to kill them because they don't want to have a three-way with it. It is just so bizarre and random. And I was worried it was going to turn into a Family Guy cutaway gag where, oh, it's a non sequitur, it's just there to be lol XD so random. But to my surprise, it was actually really funny. And I love the fact that it is just never addressed ever again. So clearly that non sequitur kind of style cutaway gag shit can work as long as there's like some proper context to it. So, yeah, Naked Gun I thought really worked. And I think the thing that really worked the most here is Liam Neeson, who is basically doing what Leslie Nielsen did, and that he's treating everything he's saying, no matter how silly, 100% seriously. I mean, let me just say, I'm so glad they didn't go with who they originally wanted, because when they were first conceiving this idea of a Naked Gun reboot, they thought about getting Ed Helms, and I thought that would have just been the worst thing. Especially after that terrible Vacation reboot, I'm like, no, please no. So the fact that they went with a serious actor to say all these goofy lines, I think that perfectly nailed the tone of humor that the original Naked Gun movies were built on. Next movie is another action comedy, and I'm not going to have a whole lot to say here because it's pretty good. It's about on par with the first movie, if not a little bit better. Nobody 2. So if you didn't see Nobody 1, it stars Bob Odenkirk, Saul Goodman from Better Call Saul, and basically it's a John Wick style movie, but the whole thing with this movie is that he's supposed to be just this normal everyday guy. He's somebody you wouldn't expect to be this John Wick style badass who goes around shooting people and, you know, taking out bad guys. The first Nobody was pretty good, and I'd say this movie was pretty good too. The big plot of this movie is that him and his family have to go on this cross-country road trip to like a family cabin or something, and of course along the way they end up getting swept up into this big espionage plot involving this queen pin played by Sharon Stone, who's mugging her heart out, and you know what, God bless her for it, she just plays this absolute psycho really well. And they do have some characters from the first one come back. You got the RZA coming back, wielding a samurai sword, and he was pretty good in it. He's not in it as much as the first one, but he's in it enough for me to be like, okay, it's good to see him again. The action scenes I thought were really good. Honestly, I don't know how this is possible, but the action scenes in this movie, in the movie starring a guy who used to be on a skit comedy show like Mr. Show, actually had better action scenes than Love Hurts. I don't know how that's possible, but there you go. They somehow did it. Just like with Naked Gun, I think the biggest strength with this movie was that it felt in tone with the first movie, and that it's supposed to be an action movie, like a John Wick style action film, but it's done from the perspective of this normal everyday suburbanite guy, and in this movie's case, his family by extension. You know, his family get wrapped up in the action as well, which there wasn't a whole lot of that in the first movie. You know, the wife ends up getting kidnapped, and that was sort of the big third act drive of that one. But this one, you know, the family does get involved, and they all hold their own. And, you know, the big action scene at the end where it's Bob Odenkirk and his wife going up against Sharon Stone and her guys. I thought that they did a pretty good job with that. I really liked a lot of that. The action scenes were great. I thought the comedy was pretty funny. It was consistently entertaining. Again, nothing great, but I can't stress this enough. Just like with Novocaine and Naked Gun 2025, it was still better than Love Hurts. I'm going to get to a lot of the really indie movies that I saw this year. The first of those, we got Good Boy. Good Boy was a passion project of a young couple and their dog, and they made the movie for a couple thousand, and it was put out by Shudder, which is this horror streaming service, which I recognize that, and some other company that's a lot smaller. But the fact that this movie was put in theaters is a miracle, because I was very curious based on the trailer, and I remember a lot of people saying this looks like a live-action version of Courage the Cowardly Dog, which it essentially is if you throw in a lot of like existential horror into it, which, to be fair, that's exactly what Courage was built on too. The whole movie is done from the perspective of this dog, and we see from this dog's perspective that they move into this house that once belonged to, I forget if it was the dad or the granddad of the main guy in it, but the main guy, who we don't see his face for like the duration of the movie until the third act. And at first it seems like the reason that the guy is acting strangely once they get into this house is because there's some kind of evil spirit that's possessing him. But as the movie goes on, it's revealed that the whole thing is supposed to be a metaphor for cancer, and it turns out the guy has some kind of cancer, which, going back to 28 years later, it's kind of the same deal there. The reason that the guy's acting so erratic and the guy is losing his memory is because it seems like he has some kind of early onset dementia or something going on. And they also established parts earlier where something's clearly wrong with him because he's coughing up blood. So they leave these subtle hints, and then eventually when it's revealed in the third act, you're like, oh. Like, it actually is like a really clever, oh, I see what they did. And it does get into a lot of supernatural stuff near the end, but it's also supposed to be metaphorical. Like, there's this shadowy figure who's supposed to be the Grim Reaper, and he ends up taking the human owner away. But before he dies, he does get to say a tearful goodbye to the dog. And I'm not going to lie, it did pull at my heartstrings. I was like, holy shit, that is so sad. And then, like, even during the credits, like, the sister of the guy throughout the movie is calling him to see if he's okay. And then, at the end of the movie, she ends up showing up and finding his remains, and then she takes the dog with her. And it's just, again, from the dog's perspective of, you know, her driving the dog off, and she's like, come on, boy, like, we'll get you a good home. So, implying that she now is in ownership of the dog. And it's it's genuinely sad. It's a very well-made, poignant movie. For a very low-budget movie, it's incredibly well done. I mean, there's a couple CG shots that aren't the best, but I can look past it. I thought the movie had a lot of positives that lifted it up and helped keep it from being, it's just some forgettable indie movie. There's so much personality to this movie, and if I can go on a side tangent with some of the other movies that I saw after that, I'm glad to see that smaller movies like this are getting more attention, because all throughout this year, it seemed like a lot of the big budget stuff, or the stuff that was definitely pushed by the studios, or these like celebrity projects like Hurry Up Tomorrow, which was The Weeknd's big movie of the year. All of these were just so bad, and they were just simply lying on the laurels of, oh, it's from this big studio, or it's based on a popular IP, or, oh, it stars this person that you know. This movie, on the other hand, just low-budget movie, a simple story about a guy and a dog moving in to a new house. The house is kind of creepy. The dog doesn't trust it. It's mostly told from the dog's perspective. There's even this little thing after the credits where it's like a 5-minute interlude of them talking about how they made the movie and how they did like perspective stuff with the dog. And it made me like the movie even more because it just shows that this was a labor of love with these people, and it wasn't just some stupid studio project, which I think a lot of people are just generally getting sick of. I mean, yes, obviously people are going to go rush out to see the big studio ones, but it seems like even then, those movies are losing money. I mean, there were so many movies that flopped this year. I mean, there were so many big studio movies that flopped in 2025. So the fact that smaller stuff like this and Day the Earth Blew Up, and it really felt like kind of the year of the underdogs, no pun intended, where it's like the smaller budget movies, the more passionate ones, the more indie movies, were getting more attention and more people were showing that stuff love, which, as someone who likes a lot of, smaller grade indie movies, I thought they did a good job. I really wanted to pat them on the back. The same can be said for the next movie I'm going to talk about, Roofman. Roofman was put out by a slightly bigger studio. It was put out by Miramax, but it wasn't a movie that was getting a whole lot of advertising. It wasn't like Snow White, which is based on this beloved Disney movie, or Minecraft, where it's based on this beloved video game that everyone's been talking about since like 2011. This one is based on a real story. It's based on a guy who apparently was called the Roofman. I guess you can say this movie's kind of similar to a movie like 30 Minutes or Less, except it's not a dark comedy. Because that movie's premise was about a guy who, it was apparently ripped from the headlines. It was about a pizza guy who was told to rob a bank, and he had a bomb strapped to his chest, and if he didn't rob the bank successfully, he would blow up. But in this movie, you have this criminal who's, what he's doing is bad. He's robbing these places, but he's too good of a guy. It seems like all the people that he robbed would still talk about how such a good person he was. And they actually showed interview footage during the credits, and I was like, wait, I never would have guessed this was real. Because this is also a period piece. It takes place in the 2000s. Compared to another movie we're going to get to in a bit. It's a better 2000s period piece movie. But they show interview footage, like one of the first places he hits is a McDonald's. And the reason he has all this experience with scaling buildings and, these, quick getaways is because he has military experience. And one of the first places he hits is a McDonald's, and he's about to put all these people in the freezer at gunpoint, and then he goes, wait, you look shivering. Okay, everybody out, put on jackets, and then he puts them back in. It's like, and when they're being interviewed, it's like, yeah, he let us stop to get jackets before putting us in the freezer. What a good guy. And the whole movie, you can see where they're coming from, because, he eventually snaps in the third act, but he feels really bad about it, and he eventually tries to make up for it. It's one of those, it kind of goes along with Novocaine, except it's, this is about a bumbling criminal who's not really bumbling because he is successful at what he does, but his biggest folly is that he's too good of a guy. So even though what he's doing is really bad, you do sympathize with him. And Channing Tatum makes this character incredibly likable. Basically, he ends up going to prison because at first he's trying to win over his wife because they had a nasty divorce. And he does start to win her over at first, but then he ends up getting taken to jail because a lot of the stuff that he bought for his daughter was stolen. So he ends up in prison, but he manages to escape, and then he basically hides out at a Toys R Us while a friend of his is trying to make fake passports. So while all that's going on, this takes place over the course of a year or so. In the meantime, he hunkers down in this small area of a Toys R Us that Apparently nobody noticed. So while he's doing that, he occasionally goes out to try and get like food and stuff, so he's not just living on snacks in the Toys R Us. And he has like a little like SpongeBob TV or something, I don't know, and like a couple of like toys and skateboards and stuff that he plays with, because he also disables the security cameras so that way he doesn't get caught. But while he's out, he ends up coming across this woman who works at the Toys R Us, played by Kirsten Dunst. She's a single mom with 2 young girls, and they start dating because he meets at this local like church get-together event, and they seem to genuinely like each other, and he does seem to be a good parental figure to her kids. And the thing that I like the most about this movie, just like with Good Boy, it felt like it focused on actual people. And it wasn't just the fact that, oh, it was based on real events. You could actually see a lot of the people in this movie feeling like actual people. Even people who feel like they're playing up their character, like Peter Dinklage is the asshole boss character. He feels a bit exaggerated, but he still felt relatively realistic. There were some parts that felt a little bit odd, especially considering how the movie was marketed. Like, very early on, they established this character who's a cop, and so you think that maybe she's going to play a bigger part in the story. She really doesn't. Like, she just happens to be there at that one scene, and Channing Tatum is just kind of like, oh, yeah, you're law enforcement. Oh, okay. And then you're like, okay, so she's going to become a crucial character later. Nope. She really doesn't do a whole lot. That was a little bit surprising. And the movie does go how you'd expect. I mean, he does end up falling for this woman. He basically says, you know, fuck his ex-wife. He doesn't care anymore. He does want to care about his daughter because that's his whole motivating factor at first. But then once he gets connected to Kirsten Dunst and her daughters, then he's like, oh, I don't know if I can leave the country at this point. So, you know, there's this like whole conflict where he doesn't know what he wants to do. And then ultimately he ends up turning himself in. He ends up getting caught. And he goes back. This was a nice little indie movie. And despite the fact that it was 2 hours, it didn't feel like it. There's another movie I'm going to say the same thing about. But yeah, this was a movie that was an original concept. I mean, yeah, it's based on actual events. But it's something that, it was original. It was something different. It was something I hadn't seen before. And the movie carried itself pretty well. I mean, there was a few things that probably could have changed to make it a little bit smoother. But other than that, other than those like little nitpicks, I really enjoyed this movie a lot. Channing Tatum, I thought, did really good. The cast was really good. The story was very consistently entertaining, and it took so many twists and turns. I'm like, yeah, where is this going? And even though the movie does end on the typical note like you'd expect, like Kirsten Dunst ends up going to see him in prison, and it seems like they kind of are going to keep their relationship together. It's still basically implied that Channing Tatum is going to be in prison for a while. And I love how apparently this was based on the actual story. Apparently he tried to break out at least 3 more times after that. And as far as I can tell, that guy is still in prison as of now. And he won't be released until, I don't know, 2062 maybe? I'm sorry, it's just the middle of January, and for some reason there's like a chainsaw going off or something? I don't know. Just try to ignore that. You know, move on. Next movie, I already did a video on this, even though it got taken down by Netflix. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. K-pop Demon Hunters. I really liked this movie, and I basically said the same thing there, hence why I'm wearing Golden t-shirt. I'm glad Golden received Best Song at the Critics' Choice Awards, and it seems like K-pop Demon Hunters was the go-to Best Animated Movie at that award show. It seems like they got plenty more opportunities to win some more awards, because it seems like this was the breakout animated movie of the year, and the breakout soundtrack of the year, because I've seen a lot of these like music critics on YouTube saying that, like, yeah, 2025 was a pretty dry spell for music until this movie came around. So you know what? Yeah, I'm glad that this movie made a big splash. I'm glad this movie made an impact. I'm curious to see where it goes from here. I know they say that they want to do some shorts. They said they probably want to do another like short before the next Spider-Verse movie, I think is what they said. I really want to see where this goes. I think they said they want to do a sequel or a prequel at some point. But that won't be coming out until much later, which I am all for that. I would rather prefer sequels or any kind of follow-up get made after they have a genuinely good idea and they actually let some time sit so that you want to actually see it instead of just rushing out a sequel 2 or 3 years later. So I'm very curious to see where that goes. The one thing I am a little bit worried about with this franchise is I'm worried that, like a lot of other franchises, it'll eventually get old. There's like that worry of it's going to be too overexposed. I saw people say the same thing about Smiling Friends, which I really like. But in the case of Smiling Friends, I feel like Smiling Friends at least knows what it is. So I feel like, you know, it's not going to be like Rick and Morty where it starts taking itself too seriously and then people get like really pretentious about it. I feel like the worry with K-pop Demon Hunters is that it will eventually become overexposed. I am a little bit concerned about that. This movie has a bunch of AI slop videos made to it, like that Elsagate kind of content that pops up in your feed and you're like, oh god, no. Where it's like, you know, Rumi pregnant, who's the father? And it's like, you know, a thumbnail of like, it's obviously generated with AI where like Rumi looking shocked and Jinu looking shocked and, you know, Rumi has like a pregnant belly and then you look at the channel that uploaded it and it's nothing but that kind of content. Zoe pregnant, who's the father? Mira pregnant, who's the father? This character cheating on this character? It's like, oh god, it's Elsagate all over again, motherfucker. But as it stands right now, I'm perfectly fine with the fandom that the movie has built up. I'm really glad people liked the soundtrack and people really liked a lot of the aspects of this movie, like the characters. And I can't stress enough. I already talked about this in the video for it, but I really liked a lot of aspects of this movie. It really did surprise me in how much I liked it. And it's one of those movies where I keep going back to it and rewatching it every once in a while, and it's still just as good as when I first saw it. Like, there are some movies where it's like I see them enough times and eventually I'm like, all right, I don't want to see that for a while. But this movie, I've rewatched it every once in a while throughout the remainder of 2025, and I still really enjoyed it. Even though the movie theater experience I had for it fucking sucked. You know, I talked about that in the video, but you had a bunch of kids running around. Like, not even just singing and dancing to the songs. They were, like, fucking getting into drama with each other and, like, yelling at each other. All in the row right in front of me, of course. And if it wasn't that, you had the three guardians of these kids not doing anything, just letting them fucking cause havoc. Even though during the trailers they told them, "Now you better watch yourself. You know, don't be yelling, don't be talking," and then they just let it happen all throughout the fucking movie. Not during the trailers, but during the movie itself. And if it wasn't that, whenever they were getting up to sing and dance, the fucking guardian women just pull out their phones and start recording them so they could put it on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. Sucks. But back with the indie movies, we got Rental Family. Rental Family is a Japanese-American co-production put out by a relatively smaller company. I believe Fox Searchlight put out the American release, or the Western releases, I think. But this movie, it's about a washed-up actor who hasn't done a lot in years. He's been running away from his family once his father died, which is basically why he left Canada. And he's played by Brendan Fraser. This is one of those indie movies that Brendan Fraser's been doing a lot lately, and it's really good. Because he's a struggling actor in a foreign country, he ends up doing stupid commercials, essentially. He's recognized for this, like, goofy toothpaste commercial. But this agency decides, hey, we take in actors, sort of. The whole thing that we do here is we take actors and we assign them to people who are struggling and just want someone to talk to. So you have to play a role so that you can go along with these people to help them through something tough in their life. You have Brendan Fraser pretending to be the husband of this young lady so that her parents will finally get off her back and, you know, oh, she can finally be married. But then it turns out that the reason that this was set up is because they apparently disapproved of her getting married to another woman. So once they go off to their honeymoon, you know, Brendan Fraser slips away so that these two young ladies can elope. We have a couple of other ones. The two big ones in the movie are he has to play the father of this young girl so that she can get into some kind of big prestigious school. But while that's what the mother wants, the little girl ends up attaching to him thinking that he's really her birth father. And it's one of those things, it's sort of like a chosen family story, essentially. And the other person that he connects to is he has to play the role of a journalist who's interviewing this old guy who really just wants companionship. Eventually it's revealed that he misses his wife. He's sad that his wife died because they end up going off of the island where they are and they go to another area of Japan, and it's in this wooded area where he finds this shoebox where a bunch of old keepsakes and photos were laying, and he gets to see them one more time before he passes. Just like Roofman, it's relatively long. It's like a 2-hour movie, and yet it never felt long. The movie flows really well. And Brendan Fraser and all the other actors do a very good job carrying it through. There's a couple of other characters as well. There's like fellow actors at this agency, and eventually they start to think that what they do is pretty manipulative and shitty, because this one young actress is being hired to play the fake mistress for this guy who's been cheating, so that way he can break it off with his real mistress, who he doesn't seem to really be wanting to break up with. And eventually she reveals like what happened to his wife, and his wife just goes off on him. And even the guy who's in charge of this rental family agency, at first you think that he's just like kind of shitty businessman, and he's just kind of like, oh yeah, like we're giving people what they want. Even though obviously there's a lot of bad repercussions, because eventually the mom wants to pull out of her contract with Brendan Fraser because the daughter's getting too connected to him. So then he has to have the inevitable third act, well, I gotta go back to America, honey, I'm sorry. And, you know, she's like, no, you said you would never leave me again. And then eventually she finds out that he's an actor because there's this, like, pirate movie that he was in playing on the TV. And eventually the mom has to reveal that it was all a ruse to try and get her into this big prestigious school, which is obviously what the mom wanted and not the kid. And at one point, Brendan Fraser, when he takes this old guy looking for this old time capsule that him and his wife and maybe some of their friends buried, the head of the company calls him up and is like, you know, what are you doing? You weren't supposed to do that. You're not supposed to get that attached. And Brendan Fraser's like, oh, what? So we're just supposed to like fuck with these people's lives for money? Is that what this is about? And then eventually it turns out that that guy doesn't even have a real family. He comes home to this fake family, which at first they build up earlier in the movie and you think it's his actual family, but then once it's actually revealed that it's a fake family for him, you're like, oh shit, it all makes sense. Holy fuck. I felt there was a lot of genuine passion that went into this. I really liked the story. I thought they did a great job conveying the story and the emotion. And it's just a wholly original concept that I thought they really carried out surprisingly well from beginning to end. And just like with Roofman, you know it's a good movie when a movie is like almost 2 hours, and yet it never felt like it was long or that it dragged. So, yeah, I really liked this movie as well. Now we're going to talk about probably the weakest movie here, the one that I've seen make so many worst movie of 2025 lists, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I did a video talking about the first Five Nights at Freddy's movie. I said that I enjoyed it. I rewatched that movie a while ago. I still enjoy it for what it is. I don't think it's a perfect movie by any means, but I had fun with it. Watching this movie is incredibly flawed. This movie is very dumb. This movie is really stupid. And yet I kind of enjoyed it because of how bad it was. I think what a lot of people felt with Minecraft movie, I felt with this movie. This movie is not very good, and yet I would highly recommend people watch it if they want to laugh at a really bad movie. There are just so many parts of this movie that are so stupid. I mean, okay, it takes place a couple years after the events of the first one, and Abby, the little sister of Mike, Josh Hutcherson's character, she's starting to miss her robot friends, so every once in a while she hops on her bike and drives over to, you know, the remains of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, because she really wants to see her friends again. But this movie introduces this whole thing, which is connected to the games, the Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and some of the other games, because this movie is loaded to the brim with like fan references and fan service and lore. Because as it turns out, this movie was actually written by Scott Cawthon, who I think was like a story consultant or one of the 3 writers of the first movie. Here, he wrote the whole thing, and it shows, because this movie feels like just one big collection of, hey, this is from the games, this is from the books, this is from all the other things in this franchise, this is fan service bukkake in this movie. I want a meme similar to the If Blank was written by Vivzy Pop, but instead of like, oh, If Blank was written by Vivzy Pop, and it's just like sped up footage of characters randomly swearing or talking about sex things, I want to see a meme where it's like Blank written by Scott Cawthon, where you have characters sped up talking about like lore and just lore dumping the whole time, because that's basically what this movie is. But as they established, there were several previous murders at another Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, which just so happens to be in the same town, same county, because it seems like, just like the other Freddy's place, it seems like this place is pretty easy to get to for this little girl on bicycle. There are several times where she just rides over there like it's nothing. It's just like, oh, okay. It's apparently super easy to get to. It's like 5 minutes away, I guess. But she ends up befriending the animatronics there, which are supposed to be the toy animatronics from the second Freddy's game. And, well, the whole thing is being puppeteered by the marionette, who is, in this movie, possessed by a little girl named Charlotte, who was killed in the restaurant. And, well, she has a vendetta specifically against parents, because when she was trying to warn parents before she got killed, she was trying to warn a lot of different parents at that place that there was a little boy that was being taken in the back room to be killed, but nobody believed her. And this is what I'm talking about. The first scene in the movie just sets the stage for all the goofy shit that's in this, because there are like all these like annoying, strict adult characters, and she's like, there's a little boy in the back, he's gonna be murdered, and all of them are just like token evil adults. They're just like, hello, adults are talking, little girl. Oh, if it's such a big deal, go talk to your parents. Like, what parents talk like that? God. And then she ends up getting killed trying to rescue this boy, but I guess the media spins it like, oh no, it wasn't anybody working at Freddy Fazbear's, it was an accident. The higher-ups give their condolences. This movie is just a million different subplots going on at once. You got Vanessa's stuff. She has her trauma where she's trying to get over her father, who Matthew Lillard shows up for like a dream sequence. And he has one of the funniest green screen falling down the stairs. No! Things. It's so bad. It looks on par with fucking Ninja Turtles 3 at the end when the guy falls off the cliff. There's a character they introduced super early on named Michael, who turns out to be Michael Afton. Because in this one, it's not that Josh Hutcherson is related to the Aftons. Instead, there's this completely separate character named Michael Afton, who's supposed to be Vanessa's brother, and obviously that's connected to the games and the books and the lore. But he's in the movie like once. The whole movie carries on, and then he shows up in the third act at the very end, just to remind you he was in the movie. And the guy playing this character, oh my god, this guy was mugging like crazy. I mean, like, he's one of those guys, he's got crazy eyes going, and like he looks like evil Hannibal Lecter alfalfa, like the way his hair's parted in the middle. And every time he's on screen, he just has this like, yes, I'm Michael Afton, yes, follow me. Like, he's the kind of person where it's like, if you look at him, you would not let this guy walk behind you because you know some bad shit was gonna happen. Paranormal investigator people who are called like the Supernatural Scoopers, and like their logo has like a pooper scooper on it. I would say that was the doofiest name for a fucking paranormal investigator group, but I mean, in 2025, we also got Shelby Oaks, which gave us the Paranormal Paranoids. So they can have a fucking cage match at the gallows for who has the dumber name. But these paranormal investigator guys, they show up, they end up getting killed. There's a subplot involving Abby at school where there's this big science fair coming up, and she's not very good with building animatronics or robotics or whatever, and again, with the token evil adults that feel like they're out of a Disney Channel movie, you got Wayne Knight returning as, basically he's just playing token asshole teacher, because he's just like, you know, oh, I want everybody to be there. This will make up most of your grades. So everybody is not going to take off this weekend to go to this Freddy Fazbear Fest. Which that's the thing they set up at the very beginning, and like, they only really do one scene at it. Like, I thought that was going to be like the whole climax of the movie was going to take place there, but apparently I was wrong. But he's like, oh, Abby, I didn't expect you to be at the science fair. After he told everybody in his class to be there, but then, you know, because he's an asshole, he's like, oh yeah, that looks really good. Oops. And then like just drops it on the ground and it just breaks into a million pieces. And then he's like one of the few characters that dies in the movie because he goes off to the back room at some point in the school. Like he goes to like his office or something to get his keys. And then Toy Chica, who in this movie is played by Megan Fox. And the entire time I was thinking like, man, they're really making a lot of emphasis on Chica. I wonder why. Oh, could it possibly be because Megan Fox wanted a bigger role? That couldn't possibly be it. But then she like squeezes his head, but she squeezes Wayne Knight's head and then he drops to the floor and dies. They don't show any of it because it's a PG-13. Like the first movie I thought was okay as like a gateway horror movie for kids. This one just kind of feels like, I mean, like there's like one scene where they show like blood flying everywhere in like a watery area, and that's about it. you know, along with like the head crunching sound effect. Really, other than that, there's really not that much graphic shit in this. If you toned it down, you probably could have made this a PG movie. You could have put it on par with like Goosebumps or something. That's the other thing. The horror element of this movie sucks because there are just so many times where it's like a character will turn, it's all quiet, turn, and then just like not even anything moving, just still image, done. It's like that scene from the first movie where they show like the Balloon Boy minifigure or whatever, and it's like just a still image, it zooms in and then just done, and then the character, whoa. That's basically all the scares in this movie. So many times character turns around, done, whoa. Just so much of that. I think my favorite scene in the whole movie, when it comes to all the goofy, stupid, convenient shit, my favorite part, it's not even the part when they actually start to mimic the second Five Nights at Freddy's, where it's like, oh, Josh Hutcherson has to sit there in a room with no doors, and whenever the animatronics show up, he has to hold up a Freddy mask. I saw people complain that was stupid, but I think my favorite part of the movie that just relies on how just cliche and plot convenient everything in this movie is, there's a scene where they establish very early on in the beginning that Josh Hutcherson has like this best friend character. And then again, like the Michael Afton character just disappears for long stretches of time. And then near the end of the movie in the third act, when the animatronics are loose and trying to kill parents, Vanessa ends up getting into like a tussle with Mangle, who's like messing up her car. She's able to shake off Mangle, but she also sees that her car is damaged, like the car won't start. She's on this like back road somewhere. She's like, damn it. And then the best friend character in like an SUV or a minivan or whatever rolls up and is like, Vanessa, is that you? Do you need a lift? He just happens to be on that back road at that exact time. And then they have this big fight scene at Mike and Abby's new house. And at first you think Abby's possessed by the marionette, because that's what the marionette can do. It can possess people. But they end up getting the marionette out of her. And then the evil toy versions of the characters show up. And then they have this like Avengers style moment where it's like, you know, oh no, our main characters are going to get hurt by the evil toy versions of these characters. And then, you know, each one gets like punched to the ground or whatever. And then they pan over and it's like, oh, it's the originals. And they have this like dramatic, like heroic music, dun 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 dun. It's just so fucking dumb. And then Michael Afton tries to make a getaway, but then the best friend character punches him out and just goes, take that, asshole, or something. It's, oh my god. And then they have this like this post-credit scene where it's supposed to be set up for the third one, and it's like it's similar to the plot of the third game where it takes place in the future, and it's like, oh, a bunch of stuff from the original location was stolen by some pranking kids or whatever. And it's like they show these kids breaking in, and they're like, man, some of these would look great for Fast Fest. Whoa, the original Springtrap costume. Yeah, let's take it. So that's supposed to be set up that I guess Matthew Lillard will have a bigger role in the third one that they'll inevitably make because this one made money on its relatively low Blumhouse budget. I can't stress enough, this is not a very good movie. There are so many dumb things in it, but I was so entertained while watching this film in the theater. This movie was so fucking funny. There was like 15 other people there. There was a couple there that had a baby with them. The baby cried like once for like less than 5 seconds. Which, yeah, that's smart. Take a baby to a horror movie where there's a bunch of jump scares. I want people to watch this movie just to see how bad it is. I kind of enjoyed how bad this movie was. And honestly, compared to K-Pop Demon Hunters, I had a better theater experience because, I mean, there was even a part where a guy was getting up and, like, you know, I didn't mind. And the guy's like, sorry. And I'm like, no, you're good. It's fine. There were more courteous people in this movie than there were at K-Pop Demon Hunters. We have 2 movies left, and I'm going to be very brief with this one. I saw The Grinch 25th Anniversary.
Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
There's already a video of me and my friend Dave talking about this movie. We enjoyed it. It's, you know, Jim Carrey Grinch movie. It's not perfect, but obviously there's a lot of nostalgia for it, so I'm happy about that. I saw the movie at like 1:45 in the afternoon, and there was like 1, maybe 2 people in that theater. There was somebody walking in during the credits, and there may have been somebody sitting in the very back, possibly, I don't know. There wasn't that many people. Maybe if I waited for the 5 o'clock showing, there probably would have been more people there, but yeah, it was neat to see that movie on the big screen again. But the last movie I wanted to talk about is another one that's one of those, you know, a lot of people didn't seem to really like it. So we come full circle. We started with Love Hurts, which a lot of people didn't really like, and now we got this movie that I guess people are mixed on. It's the Anaconda reboot. overall, Anaconda, I thought was okay. Just like Love Hurts, I thought it was okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. There wasn't really any part of the movie where I was like, oh man, fuck this. I want to walk out. There was nothing like that. But at the same time, it wasn't a movie that I was like really looking forward to. I wasn't really like expecting anything great. It was pretty much exactly what I expected. It's that new trend of like, hey, let's take this kind of cult classic that people love to make fun of, and we'll make a movie that's supposed to be funny. It's kind of following in the footsteps of like 21 Jump Street and stuff like that, except that was good. This one is very on the nose. I mean, the movie, several times they name drop Sony, and they even have a character at one point say, yeah, they're rebooting Anaconda. No original ideas, Hollywood. And so stuff like that, I was just kind of like, oh, look, because you're self-aware about it, automatically that negates the fact that it's pretty much what you're doing. I know what I'm doing, but because I'm making fun of it, that means that it's okay, right? It was one of those kind of deals. In this case, you follow a struggling director played by Jack Black, who is basically delegated to what his boss even refers to as like a B+ job, which is making like wedding videos. And he's clearly not passionate about that. He wants to be like an actual director. And his buddy Paul Rudd plays a struggling actor. And that was one of the few things I laughed at, because there's a scene where Paul Rudd is playing like Doctor Number 3 on some like ER type show. And he's just such a character actor. He like wants to bring more life to the role than he actually is required to. But it's like he does like a British accent. The director doesn't like it. He tries saying the lines really slow. The director doesn't like it. Thandie Newton, who plays an old flame of Paul Rudd's, and Steve Zahn, who's a guy who works with Jack Black. And he's supposed to be like the goofy character of the movie because he's very eccentric. They end up going to, they end up going to the jungle to try and make a reboot of Anaconda because Paul Rudd tells them that he bought the rights to the franchise. And then later it turns out that was a lie and that he just wanted to go out and make a movie with his old friends again. Then they end up getting swept up in this whole plot where there's this alleged criminal who's out there trying to smuggle gold out of mines that are there. And there's this young woman who, at first you think that she's trying to like, you stop this guy, and then halfway through the movie, spoiler, it turns out that it's actually her. After they trusted her, she basically used them just to get to certain parts of this island that have gold mine shafts, and so she wants to get away. It doesn't really matter because, I mean, her and the cop guy that was chasing after her, that guy ends up getting shot, and she ends up getting eaten by the Anaconda, so yeah. I mean, like, it's like they were trying to make her like the new Jon Voight from the original, where it's like, he's supposed to be a criminal, but at first they trust him, and then it turns out he's not trustworthy, and then he ends up getting it. Except, Jon Voight gets like the most gruesome death in that movie because he's the bad guy and you want to see his character die. Here, she just dies like halfway through the movie. And on top of that, there are just dumb comedic set pieces. Like, at one point you think Jack Black gets eaten, but then they come across his remains, and they're like, oh, well, maybe we can use his corpse as a distraction to get off this island. So they take his corpse, they put like a dead pig and like some other dead animal parts on him. But it turns out he wasn't dead. He ends up getting back up and he has to run. And there's a part before that where Jack Black gets bitten by a spider or a tarantula or something. And, oh no, somebody help me take the venom out. Nobody wants to suck the venom out. It's like, oh, piss on it. And they nominate Steve Zahn to do it. And Steve Zahn says that he can't piss in front of people, nor can he piss standing up. So then it cuts to Paul Rudd like on all fours while he sits on him like a table, and he pisses on Jack Black's leg where the bite is. It's like, when the movie was trying to be funny, I didn't find it all that funny. When the movie had small, subtle things that were like mildly amusing, I did laugh at those. They do have cameos from Ice Cube and Jennifer Lopez at the end, because they come across this movie set for an actually professional Sony-produced Anaconda reboot within the movie's universe. Ice Cube, for the few minutes he's in this movie, he did way better here than he did in the entirety of that Amazon War of the Worlds movie. And, I mean, there's basically, they break off from Ice Cube because Ice Cube's like, oh yeah, I'm trying to help protect the cast and crew. And so Paul Rudd and Jack Black come up with this convoluted plan to kill the snake. They end up killing it because they set off a bunch of these like flares and sparklers with the aid of Thandie Newton and Steve Zahn. And then they took all the footage that they had and they made their own unofficial, independent
Anaconda remake called The Anaconda, and they show it at like some local film festival in Buffalo because that's where they're all from. So the movie ends with the little freeze frame and text at the bottom. It's like, and that's what this person is doing now. Thandie Newton and Paul Rudd got together. Steve Zahn learned to piss while standing up. And as for Jack Black's character, and then there's this mid-credit scene where you can clearly tell that they filmed these separately because there's not a single shot where the two of them are on screen together. But Jack Black's character opens his door and Jennifer Lopez is like, "Are you Doug? Are you the guy that made that unofficial Anaconda remake without Sony's permission? Well, I loved it. We're thinking about hiring you as the director of the new Anaconda remake. What do you say?" And then Jack Black just falls over. Apparently they filmed that a month before the movie was supposed to come out, and it really feels like it because it is so apparent that those two were not in the same fucking room together. So overall, I mean, it's a reboot of Anaconda. It's probably the best Anaconda movie we've had in a while, but all the straight-to-video sequels of Anaconda were terrible. And the original movie is not even that great. It's one of those movies that people watch and are like, "Oh man, this is so silly. Oh man, this movie is so dumb, but it's so 90s and we love it for that." It's like, it is what it is. That's the way I look at it. It's not a great movie. I didn't really enjoy it a lot, but I mean, I was entertained throughout most of it. It's debatably better than Five Nights at Freddy's. And I would say probably better than Love Hurts, even though I want to give Love Hurts more credit for being original. I don't know. Yeah, like I said, this, Love Hurts, and Five Nights at Freddy's are probably the weakest movies I saw. But I would probably watch Five Nights at Freddy's more than this just because of how entertainingly bad it was. And as for the other movies, they were either good or genuinely great. I really liked a lot of the indie movies I saw. I really liked K-Pop Demon Hunters. And I really liked a lot of the action comedies that came out this year. There was like a decent number of movies that I saw in theaters that I really liked. So hopefully we keep that going in 2026. But something tells me that we're probably going to hit speed bumps along the way and see some pretty bad ones. But we'll just have to wait and see. Until next time, I'm Adam Sykes of the Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video.